Today we talk to
Robert Oberaigner.
Where are you from?
I am from Tyrol, that's part of Austria. I'm from a small village in the mountains called Tulfes.
Why did you choose the clarinet?
I came to the clarinet because of my grandfather. He used to play in one of these very traditional wind bands in Austria, you know, with the nice clothings and stuff. And he came to my parents and said, okay, our local wind band in the small village needs new players. And so I had to decide the instrument. And I have to say, clarinet was not my first choice.
What do you always keep in your clarinet case?
There is really one thing never missing. It's this here. That's the reed resurfacer. Because when you're traveling a lot, I need it for the lower surface of my reeds, because sometimes they are changing when traveling and when the air conditioning is changing. And so I can fix my reeds wherever I am.
What life-changing advice have you been given?
The most important advice as a musician I got from my former teacher. It was a few weeks before I won my first orchestra position in Cologne Opera House. And during the lesson he said to me, Robert, please think about this. If you want to achieve things, you want to get better, you play the orchestra excerpts better. To achieve this, go one step behind, then it makes it much easier to get forward with your clarinet skills. And I have to say, this really helps a lot. And always when I'm stuck with something, with a difficult passage, anything, sound quality, I think about this advice, then I start from a lower point and it helps me a lot to achieve what I'm looking for.
How did you end up working with Staatskapelle Dresden?
I was in the very lucky situation that when I was very young I won my first orchestra position at Cologne Opera House. That's the Gürzenich Orchestra, which already was a really cool position and I liked it very much there. And I got the chance to play with several German orchestras, and when I played the Fifth Symphony of Shostakovich as a guest player with Staatskapelle Dresden, I really said, okay, I want to go to this orchestra, because for me I never had such an experience with an orchestra. The kind Staatskapelle Dresden is playing unisono is very unique. So I really practiced the whole summer like hell, and in autumn, it was 2012, I auditioned for the position and luckily I won it.
What are the challenges of working with Staatskapelle Dresden?
This is an opera house, it's concert and opera orchestra. And in the opera house you really play repertoire, as you did everywhere in the mid of the last century. This means, sometimes you have weeks where you have to play the Barber of Seville, you have to play Tosca and Traviata. So you have to be always ready to play these pieces, because you have to play them without any rehearsal. You have to get under control that you have to work with a conductor you don't know. And so you have to be very flexible. But I think this is challenging, but it makes you much better, because you really know the pieces, you can play them all the time, and you get used to being ready during the whole week.
What kind of clarinetist do you consider yourself?
I think I always wanted to be a clarinetist who is able to change a little bit between the aspects of our instrument. So that's why during my work in Cologne I started studying period instruments, and I love to be able to play not only my work stuff, also to play on period instruments, to do some contemporary music, because it's for me very healthy as a musician to change between these music languages.
How did you end up playing historical clarinets?
Actually, it really was one special rehearsal I was listening to. I had in mind always to try out the historic clarinets, because from my hometown there is Rudolf Tutz, which is one of the most famous manufacturers for historic copies of instruments. And this special rehearsal was during Mozart Week in Salzburg, and I was playing with Camerata Salzburg, and we did also contemporary stuff, Elliott Carter together with Mozart. And during the break a friend called me and he said, yeah, we have a rehearsal of Haydn, Schöpfung, the creation. And I went to the Festspielhaus and was listening to Freiburg Baroque Orchestra, and Lorenzo Coppola was playing, and I was incredibly fascinated by this sound. And so the next day I drove home to my parents' house and I went to the manufacturer Rudolf Tutz and I said, okay, Rudolf, come on, you have an instrument for me, give me one. And he had one, he borrowed it to me, and that was the starting point of my period clarinet playing.
Which concert will you never forget?
As a musician, you always have more than one concert, but there is one concert I can really remember very well. It was, I think, in my second or third year with Staatskapelle Dresden, and we have every year this huge and very important Sylvester concert on the 31st of January, and we had to play George Gershwin, Rhapsody in Blue. And I always wanted to play this piece, and then it came to the point that you have to play it. I can remember that I could do this glissando, but then when you think about, okay, you have to play it in front of the camera for a few millions of listeners, you know, I get really nervous. And I can tell you, I will remember this concert because everything went well, but I really wetted my pants before the concert because I was so nervous that I will fuck it up.
Can you share a funny anecdote with us?
At the Salzburg Easter Festival, where we perform with our orchestra every year, we did a chamber concert with wind music, and one piece was from Hans Eisler, the wind quintet, and we were rehearsing it. It's a little bit complex, you know, it's 12-tone technique and stuff, and you know, everything was prepared. We did the general rehearsal, we played it through, and then I took the score from the bassoon player and I opened the score, and there was written clarinet in A, and I looked to my clarinet and I used during all the rehearsals the B-flat clarinet, and actually we found out the piece is not so disharmonic as we thought. And so I mean, okay, I did this and I said, okay, come on guys, I'm so sorry, okay, I feel bad, but please tomorrow when we are on stage, please don't laugh. And everybody said, yeah, okay, we won't laugh. And then we started with the piece, and of course the bassoon player started to laugh. Nobody understood, but it was so hard to play because, I mean, I don't know why I didn't find out on which clarinet I have to play, sorry.
Can you tell us about your teaching method?
When I teach, for me, it's very important the history of the pieces we are playing. I mean, that's why I studied the period clarinet. And for me, it's very important to look at the history of a piece, to see exactly what the composer wanted. Because I think music is open, you know, for every kind of thinking. So every student, every player is free to find his own interpretation. But I think to be allowed to find your interpretation, we are obliged to look at the history and what the composer wanted. Because I think that's very important, to look at the origin of what we are doing.
How do you see the future of the music world developing?
I think, you know, during Corona time, it's very depressing for all of us. But I think that we are, as soon as we are getting back on stage, you know, there will be more interest for what we are doing. There will be a better atmosphere, because not only the musicians but especially the audience learned from this time is that the art we are doing is something special and it's not something you can have, because a streaming concert is really nothing compared to the live experience.
Can you tell us why you made a recording of Mieczysław Weinberg's music?
For me, it has been always very interesting with my recordings to look at repertoire that is not so famous. So my first recording was of the Reger sonatas because of the anniversary of Max Reger, and we got on with some Brahms, and we will end next year with Reger and Brahms with the quintets. But in the meantime, I learned the music of Mieczysław Weinberg. I never heard about the composer. I think especially here in Dresden it's very important, because here we are in this countryside where we have Poland, Germany and Czechoslovakia, which is very important for the music of the last century. And I absolutely fall in love with this music, because honestly my favorite music somehow is Russian music. I love Tchaikovsky and Shostakovich, and we have magnificent solos in this repertoire, but we don't have really solo pieces. And Weinberg, it's like a dream, because it's like playing this style of Shostakovich in a sonata and in a concert, also with the Chamber Symphony, which is really a masterpiece. And that was the point where I said, okay, I think not enough players know this music. Also, it's very interesting for the students. So I talked with my friend Michael Jurovsky, because he knew Weinberg per person. They shared holidays together in Russia, and he said, yeah, okay, if you want to do it, I will be very strong, because I know the ideas of Weinberg, but let's record it. And so we had the luck that it's really fitting on one disc, all the three pieces of Weinberg with the clarinet, and so we can really show all the great works for the clarinet of Mieczysław Weinberg on one disc.
What do you appreciate in a performer?
For me, there is one thing that's really important, that the musicians listen to each other, so you don't have to talk too much. Because I think you can learn so much from your colleagues and from your chamber music partners. And the best way to learn something is just to listen to the others when they are playing and to understand their ideas. Then you don't have to talk a lot, and this makes everything very easy.
Do you have any advice for the Clarinetistas del Futuro?
I have two advices. As a teacher, I really want to say, don't stress about being nervous. That's part of our job. You will have it all the time, so it's part of it. It's normal that the most famous players are nervous when they have big solos or stuff. So just accept this and don't think you're the only one who is nervous. As a musician, my advice to the next generation is, don't think too much about traditions. Feel free, learn something about the history of the instrument, learn something about the origin to know this, and then find your own way, because music is art and it's important that there is a new way and a new perspective in the future.